My name's Karl Huebner. I'm a retired Indianapolis firefighter with 48 years plus on the job. I retired uh, January the 16th of '04, so I'm coming up on 10 years
Are you really?
of retirement.
Don't seem that long, I bet, does it?
I retired out of the office as a shift commander on the C shift.
Man, it don't seem that long. Well, Chief, let me ask you, how did you end up on the job? What?
I think probably I was always chasing fire apparatus or fire trucks uh, when I was a kid on our bicycles, and and I grew up with John Gregory, and his dad was a chief at the time, and we sort of run together, and I think we had maybe the same philosophy on going on the fire department. Matter of fact is, I called Lily's and told them I wouldn't come to Lily's because I was going on the fire department Monday morning. So I hadn't got the job at Lily's yet, but nevertheless I called them and told them that I wouldn't be there. Maybe that was stupid, and maybe it wasn't.
You never had no regrets, though.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, can you remember your first day on the job? Where you?
Yeah, I went December the 1st. Went to ladder 18, and that at that time is in the old station there at Tibbs and Washington Street. They had I don't know, somewhere around about a 1935, 36 Mac ladder. No aerial, just a service truck they called them at that time, and I was there for a month. My first run was on my second day on the job. We had a bedroom fire up on Holmes, up above the old link belt, and there was another business across the street. Years later, we had a 3-alarm fire, but I can't remember what the name of it was. And that was on my third day on the job.
Anything wild happened on your first day? I mean, was you surprised by anything?
No, I just probably just getting the lay of the land. I didn't have a uniform at the time either. I had my blue jeans and a T-shirt on, and the the furnace, the tweers on the stoker went out on the furnace down the basement at 18's, and they had heaters, electric heaters, and we was all sitting around electric heaters warming our hands. And I got a picture of that. That was I think it was in the news.
Huh.
Yeah.
Changes. So you.
And then January the 1st, I went to 3's engine, and I subbed out of there until I went regular at 7's. Went regular at 7's ladder in April of '56.
So your first day, you didn't have a uniform, but you responded on runs. I mean.
Oh yeah. Well, we didn't have any. Oh, I had turnout gear, but I didn't have no. At that time, it was just salt and peppers or coverts and a gray shirt and whatever kind of pants they were. Not gabardine, but just a regular dress pants. They were dress pants. Serge. They were serge. Blue pants were serge, and you had your regular uniform for the day was blue serge pants and a gray long sleeve shirt. No markings, no patch, no anything. And before 10 o'clock, you had your salt and peppers on, or what they call coverts. And you had to have your bed made by 10 and your uniform on by 10, and then after 6 you could go back to covers, which were a work type. Excuse me. Work type clothes.
Well, you mentioned when you were subbing. What do you remember about your days as subbing back then?
Oh, at 18's, we used to go out and talk to the people on the other side of the fence. That was, at that time, it was the 7 steeples. And there used to be a guy. I didn't talk so much. There was a couple guys there that did talk to him, and I think they should have been on the other side of the fence too. But yeah,
Central State.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Insane asylum, and there were quite a few back then.
There was kind of quite a few what?
Well, the people in there back then.
Oh yeah. At that time it was called Seven Steeples. They had 7 big steeples. You know, you've probably seen old pictures of it. But I really didn't. Till I got to 3s, 18s was just a place to start. When I went to 3s the 1st of January, that was great. And Gregory was there on the other shift. He was 7 on the other on the we like to say the B shift, and I was on the A shift. No 3 shifts at that time. Yeah, that was neat going to 3s.
Tell guys today that didn't realize how firehouse life was like back then, because it was a lot different than now.
Well, at 3s, that was the old station before the one they got now. It was 2.5 floors, had an attic, and at one time it had a bell tower, which was gone by the time we got there. Probably in the 40s they took it down, or maybe in the 30s. But there was coal stoves upstairs, and there was coal stoves, 1, 2, 3 coal stoves on the first floor, one in the kitchen, which was the old horse stall room, and one in by the washroom, not in the washroom, and then one up in front. And my job was to fill about I think it was 12 coal buckets in the morning, and the coal shed was right outside the back door, which was, like I said, right outside the kitchen. Which before the kitchen, it was had the grooves in the floor to clean it where the horses were. Yeah.
I've always heard about the kerosene rags and like your apparatus.
Well, that was once a week. You got underneath the apparatus with we called it waste and kerosene, and wiped everything down, even underneath the fenders, you know. And up in the engine compartment, you cleaned everything up too. And there'd be maybe 1 or 2 of you underneath the apparatus on those mechanics scooters, you know, them things you lay on. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
How about the equipment? I know you the hose, the tool. I mean, it just seemed like there's a lot more hands-on, a lot more work involved.
Now?
No, then.
Then. Well, yeah. As far as you change your hose every week. Now, some of them just turned it, but the companies that were busy, you hung a hose in the tire to dry, and put the new hose on. You had 2,000 feet of hose. You had 1,000 feet on the rack, and you had 1,000 feet in the bed of the apparatus. And if you most companies probably never change it unless they wet it, and a lot of companies didn't wet their hose. But in the busy companies, if you wet the hose, you change it every week and hung it in the hose tire and put the dry hose on, simply because at that time the old linen hose had the rubber jacket in it, and if you left water in it, it sort of, I don't know what you call it, not oxidize, but sort of dry rot or damage the hose linings. Yeah.
Huh. When you first come on, it's a lot different than today, I know. Was it hard to get respect from the older guys? I mean...
Well, I don't know what you mean by... you wouldn't necessarily call it respect. You respected them. You know, you were the young kid on the block, and if you paid attention to them, you learn a lot. When especially me, I went on the job, I didn't know anything about it. But if you paid attention to them, well, you know. Now there were some of them that might not, you wouldn't want to pay attention to because they didn't know anything anyway. But generally, in the busy companies, everybody knew what was going on, we'll put it that way. There were no duds in the busy companies. It might have been a few drunks, but you know, most everybody pulled their weight anyway.
And when you say busy companies, what would that have been back then?
Well, all your downtown companies were busy. 3s, 11s, 5s, 22s, 23s, even 1s when they were on the east side of the river. You know, the 14s, 28s was busy. There was the companies like the 16s, the 32s, the 18s, the 20s, the 29s actually were not as busy as the 26s because the 26s had the tanker at that time. And when we went on, the Perry Township wasn't even established yet. So 26s was going into the county all the time. You know, they had a 1937 Diamond T 500-gallon tanker with I think it was a 250-gallon pump on the front end of it. 18s had a Diamond the same way, and 25s had, they were all three more or less identical apparatus. The only one that was different was 32s, and I think it might have been a GMC or something like that. But it was, again, it was a 500-gallon pumper.
Well, from a guy like you, that these younger guys won't even be able to relate to, describe to me how you guys fought fires back then without air packs. I mean, I know you guys had tricks of the trade.
Well, in the first place, the response times were a lot quicker. They, a couple times I was injured, I spent time in the alarm office, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, I dispatched for a while, and when DSA lit up, that was dial service assistance. That meant the operator was calling you, and it was a fire. When that big DSA lit up on the console of the in the alarm office, that everybody jumped. And while the two guys at the desk maybe were taking the call, the guy in the back, once they said the address, he was flipping up the card that would give the first two apparatus and the first ladder as the responses. And he'd just tell them, like, it'd be if it was box 4, that was Pennsylvania Market. So they just flip it up, and you know, they would say, they wouldn't call out a specific apparatus. They'd say at the Oberbuilding, 46 North Pennsylvania Street, firebox 4. And it was up to the guys in the companies to know that they got it, which would have been the 11s, the 13s, the 7s, and I don't know, maybe, well, the 13s and the 30s was in together at the time, so that would have been 13s and 30s and 7s and 11s, at box 4.
But like when you got on the fire scene without a mask.
Well, some fires naturally are out of control when you get there. But we got there so quick that a lot of times the fire was in its incipient stages, and hell, you walked right in and put it out and it was over with. And another thing we had to our advantage downtown was the 7 Squad. 7 Squad was it was a Diamond T also. The guys rode on bench seats in the back there, and it had a 50-gallon red line, a 50-gallon tank with a 3/4-inch red line on it, and all the chauffeur there had to do is put it in pump gear and set the brake and turn the handle. And the squad had instant water. They put out a lot of fires right off. I mean, mattress fires and maybe a kitchen fire. They could go in and have that thing knocked down before the companies got their hose laid out. But response times was the big thing back in them days. Now they hem and haw around. Hell, you go to some stations, the alert goes off for them. Hell, a lot of them run to their damn locker before they go to the apparatus. We never done that. If you wasn't on that apparatus when the chauffeur fired it up, you was left, and you better not be left. You got your ass chewed out if you did. Oh yeah, yeah. We moved. We had. It was just different. And we did have windicator masts, which were next to nothing. They had a canister, and you'd pull the seal off the bottom of it and use it, and then have to replace it, of course. And when you got back to the engine house, the chemicals in it, what you did, you punched a hole in it with the pick head of your axe and submerged it in water to dissolve the chemicals in it, and then put a new canister in. And then most of the engines had one Chemox mask, which you put it on. It was cumbersome. You put it on, and then you had to get the bladder going before it would create its own oxygen and stuff like that.
Was there any differences, like in the structure? When you didn't have masks, was there a lot more people getting sick, or a lot more people, you don't see that many people crawling nowadays because you don't have to. You got masks.
Well, like I said, response times were better back in them days, but you crawled down them hallways and dragged that line, and a lot of times if a truck crew was doing the right thing, they'd get it ventilated for you. You could go in and push all the fire right out the window. Or a lot of times, though, a company go in the front door and a company go around and come in the back door, and then you you sort of depend on which company was the toughest, which one stayed and which one didn't stay. But if you had a good truck company with you to ventilate, it was easy.
Who was the best truck company back then? I'm putting you on
Well, I'd say one of the best ones. Well, there was 3 or 4. Sevens. I was later on Sevens ladder. I drove Sevens ladder, and I was on the back end of Sevens ladder. I drove 13's ladder, the old 37 LaFrance tiller. 14s was good. 5s was good. 22s was good. They were all, generally speaking, the truck companies were, except the outlying ones. You had maybe 1 or 2 guys that worked, and the rest of them sort of, like a 32. I remember a guy, I won't mention his name because he's been dead for years. They had the ladder truck was going to go to the shops, and he told the sub, he said, "Subby, you're going to have to go on that truck down to the shop because my legs won't stand the ride." That kind of stuff from some of the old guys that, well, they just had a job. Of course, at that time, we only made $3,100 a year when I went on the job. I think we made $3,100, and after a year, we got a $60 raise or something like that.
When you think about your career on IFD, what do you think about the most as your IFD experience? What do you cherish the most, I would think, or think about the most when you look back?
Oh, some of the people. Not all of them, but some of them. I still miss some of them, some of you, but not all of you, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I still, after 10 years, I still miss my car and my siren and red lights, and I miss going to a fire once in a while.
Was it your time as a chief, you think, or was it your earlier days that you really cherish?
Either one.
All of it.
All of it, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a good, when I was a Sevens ladder, we we just was a good, Sevens was a good firefighting outfit. Fives was a good, everywhere I went was good.
Well, you made it as chief, so what, in your opinion, makes a good officer?
First off, a guy that knows what's going on. He knows the ins and outs of firefighting, firefighter safety, and being able to handle these men and not be a bully, so to speak, I guess you'd say, maybe. And keep up with what the new stuff is. Of course, you know, now it's different than it was back in the old days, but the old guys had experience and they were good. They were good firemen and they were good teachers.
Well, and that's what I've heard a lot from people. You know, they said, "Man, when I was younger, when you was with certain people, you felt safe. You just felt safe. You knew what they were doing, and they took the time to teach you in fires. Where these other guys, they don't. You know, give me the pipe.
They'll put you down. They'll put you down after the fact instead of teaching you before
Yeah.
the fact.
They'll what?
They'll put you down after the fact for something you did wrong instead of teaching you before
Yeah.
what to do right.
You know.
Well, some they're now half of them don't know what they're doing.
Well, and
anyway.
some of that is the officers. They ain't had enough fire to know what they're doing themselves.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Because they're promoting these guys so early, and these township guys are coming on as captains, never had any fire. You know what I mean? So it's a combination.
I always was struck with the townships. They had probably a hell of a lot better first aid men than they were firemen.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's true.
Well, looking back on your career, and I'm sure you've had some. What are some close calls that kind of stick out in your head that like, oh, that could have went bad?
Well, close calls. Well, let's see. I think I was a cheese seed when we had a smoke bomb there at the, I think it was a Holiday Inn at Western Washington Street. And the smoke bomb was in the elevator, and me and Lieutenant or Captain Sims, he was Charlie Sims. He was with us years earlier he was on the back of 7th Squad. And me and him went in and took care of the smoke bomb. It was in the elevator. And we both went to the hospital. And consequently, and that, by the way, that was Dave Harmon's father-in-law. Dave, the pension guy, his father-in-law, Charlie Sims. And that smoke bomb in that elevator probably is the big thing that put him on the pension. It didn't bother me too much, I don't guess, unless I'm paying for it right now.
What's a smoke bomb? What do you mean by that?
Well, it was a smoke bomb. I think it was, seems like to me it was during the hot rod. Yeah, it was Labor Day. Labor Day. All the people for the drag races, and somebody popped a smoke bomb, just being a jerk. And then, of course, another time we had a fire attack, May Evans over there on the boulevard on White River Parkway, and we had to go in with take lines up, I think, on the 3rd or 4th floor into these big drums, that the dryers for the corn and stuff. And of course, corn, when it's wet and stuff, gives off a toxic. And that put about 3 or 4 of us down, and we went to the hospital there on breathing problems. But that was before winter. Well, you could have had a winter-cated mask on, but that wouldn't have done you any good. That was before SCBAs anyway. And then, of course, I fell through a floor one time, and on Vermont Street, which is right there in Lockerbie now. I think it was, the address was 513 or 515 East Vermont. It was on the second floor, and some of the floor joists give way, and like a dumbass was standing up when I should have probably been crawling. Fell down. I think I landed on a dining room table, but it didn't. I got a picture of it. I went and sat on the back of the apparatus for 5 minutes and was right back in there. I think the worst thing we ever run into was the explosion at the Coliseum. When right off the bat, walking in there right off the bat, 65 people were dead. And I think ended up, 70 or 80 people died. The rest of them, the other maybe 20 died of injuries and stuff. But that was tough. I got some pictures of it too.
So you was on that, huh?
I was driving. I was at Sevens at the time on the. I think I was a chauffeur on the engine, but I was driving the assistant chief that night, John Blazek. He was working for Ward Storm. Ward Storm was the assistant chief at that time. They called the assistant chiefs. There was Ward Storm was assistant chief, and Dick Van Sant Sr. was assistant chief, and their job was run the shifts, run the A shift and the B shift. And Storm was off, and Blazek was in District 2 at the 8s at that time, the 08s, and he was riding out that night and I was driving the buggy that night when we went to the Coliseum.
And were you on the Grant?
Oh yeah, I was a captain on Five's ladder.
Tell me about that one.
Well, we knew we was going to go because all we could see that when we looked down Capitol, all we could see was smoke. And of course, Capitol was three blocks away from the fire. But yeah, we knew we was going to go to it, and we did. And we ended up at Pearl and Pennsylvania Street, taking care of the top of the. At that time, it was the federal. It was a federal building. It had all the computers for all the federal stuff in it. It was I don't know, about a 3 or 4 story building, and the whole top of it, the roofing was all burning on it. Some of the walls are already going in on the Grant fire. And then, of course, we moved from there to the Thomas building. We was up in the Thomas building, and never will forget this, in a jewelry store up on the 7th or 8th floor. The Thomas building, I think, was 12 stories tall, and we was up on the 7th or 8th floor. I can't remember what the name of the jewelry company was, but all the showcases were sort of down, but and burnt, and the glass was all crystallized. But you could see the diamonds in there. That was pretty neat. And then you'd hear a rumble, and an elevator would be leaving the 12th floor maybe, and falling down the elevator shaft and stuff. That whole building burned out, which was across the alley west from Grant's. And then in the back, there was cars blowing up in the parking lot, in the drive-in parking lots on the south side of Pearl Street. Yeah, it was a pretty good fire. And the Washington Hotel across the street, the top 2 or 3 floors on it burned out, especially on the Washington Street side. Air conditioners coming out of the windows and coming down. Yeah. One of the coldest nights we had was, I was I was driving the engine then. We relieved the other shift at right up there, just above headquarters. There's I think there's one of them saloons up there now that they sit out in front of. It was a vending company, 25 below zero, and we relieved them up there at about 7 in the morning, and finally we got back about I don't know when it was, noon or 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock. And then that night, we just went on a little old, the next night, we went over on Indiana Avenue, a little, at that time they looked like a telephone booth, but it was a little bigger than a telephone booth. It was an office for a parking lot. You know, you've seen them little boxes sitting there where the guy keeps the money and stuff. And 13's already had it, so they just flagged us on by. We went back to 7's, and that was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. And we were just backing in. And we got there again. 914. It wasn't 4, it was 914 at the Troy restaurant. And I don't remember what the address was, but it would have been something like probably 14 North Pennsylvania Street or 16 North Pennsylvania Street, Troy restaurant. When we first pulled up right in front of it, you could see the fire around the grease chute. And Captain Eversole told me, you know, we'll just catch this plug on, we'll hook up right in front. And I never will forget, before I get to the rest of the story, later on, as you look at it, a 2 or 3 alarm fire with an engine hooked up residential in front don't look too good. Anyway, it ended up being a 2 or 3 alarm fire. I can't remember which. It burnt it all the way up. I know Fi's ladder was in the alley there on Court Street. They'd come in from Meridian Street, I think. Yeah, and they were shooting up above, and then it got into the Hofmeister Gym too, which was a 3 or 4 story building right there on the corner of Pennsylvania. And 23s, was it 20? No, 4s. 4s had a brand new engine, and I won't mention his name, but he hooked up the engine across Washington Street over there on Virginia Avenue. Turned on the plug, and never ever had a line come off of him, and he didn't churn the pumps or open a valve and busted the pumps. Because there again, it went back down to 25 below that night. So.
Well, you talked about close calls that you've had as a person. In my eyes, one of the hardest things would be being a chief and having something go bad on a fire. That's just as bad, I would think.
Well,
Or having somebody hurt on a fire bad, one of your fires, or
I can't. I'm sure people got hurt, but I don't think anything was serious. But I don't remember.
never had fires that you thought, boy, this went about as bad as it could have.
No, it seemed like we were lucky on our shift. It was like Nick's falling in the hot oil down on the Alvord Oil Company and stuff like that. He was driving a Dutch bar at the time, that kind of thing. We had people got hurt, but there was one of the few times I remember, I think, up on Burtsville Parkway or up in there was 3 or 4 guys on a front porch roof and the whole thing. But there again, I went up there, I think, but that was Van Sant or somebody like that. I don't know.
Oh, I remember that. What about, okay, let's take firefighters out of it. What about civilians? Whether you were on or whether you was a chief on work, gosh, this was bad. Where you had a lot of fatalities or something. Is there one that sticks out in your mind? You guys had a lot more.
Well, yeah, the one that created the most uproar, I think, probably, was we were sent to North Park. Like 50. We were sent to like I don't know, 27 or 29 North Park. And Bernie Egan was with me then. He was coming out of out of threes. And when we was on our way up there, I said, Bernie, there's no house with people trapped. It's it. There's no house there at anywhere in the 100 block of North Park. There's a saloon up there and across Superior Chevrolet on the west side, but there's nothing there. I was telling him on the way up there, and we got up there and asked for a repeat on the address, and just at that time they were saying all companies, that address is whatever it was, 29 or 31 North Parkview. We had 3 kids burn up, and we did get the mom and dad out, but the 3 kids, they had no chance because we went to the wrong address.
Well, before they ran EMS, you guys had a lot of downtime. What'd you guys do with a lot of your time? How'd you fill your time back in?
Back before it was politically correct not to do it, hell, I like my barn there when I was at Threes. I built all the trusses in the parking lot at Threes, and there was guys at 14s that built cabinets and had their regular workshop there, and a lot of different places. Yeah, and some guys even got away to do some of their work, which didn't happen to us or anybody around us, but you could, if you was an air conditioning man, you might ask to get away to go fix an air conditioner or something, Or,
Did you guys play a lot of games, stuff like that? Or?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. At Threes years and years ago, when I was 7, we a lot of buck euchre. 5s a lot of buck euchre. 7s was more. What do you call that peg game? Cribbage. And of course, basketball and volleyball at 5s, the old 5s there on 15th Street. When it was summertime, we'd play a lot of volleyball. Generally, it was buck euchre and poker and things like that.
Here's a good one for you. How do you think people on IFT that you work with would describe you, your career?
I never thought of it that way. Well, I would hope that they would have said that I knew what I was doing, because I think I did. But that's only my opinion. I don't know. I don't care what they think.
There you go. That's their answer.
That'd be it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you and Gregory were kind of cut out of the same mold, guys say. Sometimes people didn't like what they did, but they were firemen and they knew, they knew what the hell to do on a fire.
Yeah.
I think that kind of sums it up.
I've been brought to my attention more than once that I was a pain in the ass as far as overhaul was concerned. It was one of my biggest things that I want to see done. I want to see overhaul. That way I never had to go back. I went early on when I relied on a company officer or even an aide to check something out, and we went back. That really pissed me off. I just never want to go back on a fire, and consequently, even when I was just captain on the ladders, overhaul was a big thing, and it proved right. If you overhaul, your chances of going back are almost nil. If you don't overhaul, sometimes you go back. Which overhauling don't mean just cleaning the floor, pulling more ceiling down and wetting it down a little bit more, up where you can't see things. If you can't see it, pull it down and look at it, especially on something that was really rolling. You know. But I was known for my overhaul, and I know that because they used to throw it up to me all the time.
Well, and I've kind of asked you this before, but not directly. What was your favorite things about the job?
Oh, being around the guys, I guess.
I was gonna say I usually get the same answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I made a lot of friends, made some enemies. And then, like I said before, I'm retired now for 10 years. I miss some of you, but not all of you.
Here's a general question I've asked everybody. What's the difference between an engine guy and a truck guy?
A truck man will make a good engine man, if you get my drift. A good truck man can ventilate it and make an engine man look awful good. Or it used to be that way. I don't know what it is now. If you're going to concede a fire before you ever get into it, why, that's not the way we done it back in the old days. We went on plenty of vacant houses. We went in and put the damn thing down. But there again, I'll go back to your response times. Your response times now could be as much as 5-6 minutes, where back in the old days, with the exception of going out in the county, your response times were maybe a minute. Downtown, it might have been 30 seconds. It depends on where it was at. Or a minute and a half. A minute and a half and 5 minutes, there's altogether difference in the world in getting a fire put out and not getting it put out. And half the time now you go on a fire, they're out of control before the alarm office ever sends you on your way. Or at least it appears that way anyway. Things are different. You used to run to the apparatus. Now they, like I said, some of them go to their locker and, I don't know, get a pack of cigarettes or lock it before they go. Of course, you have to anymore on account of, if you don't and you don't lock the engine house up, somebody will come in and steal everything you got. Or back in 22s, you know, one night we had a run just down the street. Oh no, well let me start first. We had a run and they come in and took our food out of the oven. We had meatloaf in the oven, and they took the meatloaf and some other things there in the kitchen and took off with them. And they took the TV set. But they took the meatloaf along with it. And about 3 weeks later, we had a run right down the street at 23rd and Carrollton, and there was our TV. And we took it.
Did you ask them about the meatloaf?
Yeah.
What made you more mad, the meatloaf that night or the TV?
Well, at the time it was we were hungry. But then we got our TV back.
You know, I'm going to add a question in here I just thought of.
Hey, Chris, hold on a second. This phone thing is probably getting in your way, and it's actually better if it's off. There, perfect. Okay, go for it.
You know, one thing I've seen on officers, good and bad, is a decision making. Make a decision and go. You know what I mean? How important it is. You know what I'm getting at? A lot of officers have that trouble making.
Well, I think now probably they're scared of their own shadow. They're scared of repercussions. Yeah. Back in the old days, you never had somebody looking over your shoulder all the time like they're doing it now. And everybody's scared to make a mistake. And half of them wouldn't know a mistake if they seen it anyway. I would think. I don't know. I shouldn't say because I've been gone too long. I don't know how they're running everything, but yeah.
I think you're right. You make a mistake, you go downtown, and all the other chiefs got their finger pointing at you. Why didn't you do it this way? It's always easier in hindsight.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Something Chief Gregory was talking about too is he said you have all these safety officers with little to no experience, and they're coming in telling you when to pull out and when to
Yeah.
to pull out.
And they're pretty much running the fire
And
as
the
far
chiefs-
as
Well, they do run the fire, don't the safety officer? He overrides the battalion chief not the battalion chief anymore, the incident commander, don't he? I guess he does.
Can,
when
yeah,
it comes to
yeah.
when it comes to safety, getting in or out of the building. I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah.
Well, Chief Greg was saying, he said I had my crews and I knew my officers and I could trust them to pull themselves out when they get
Right,
if they got
right.
in.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
So that's part of it, probably. How would you describe somebody that knows nothing about it and they ask you, what's it all about?
I'll say that again.
If somebody asks you about the fire department, who know nothing about the profession of being a firefighter, say a young kid down in Florida you run into, and they say, I thought about being a fireman. What can you tell me about it? What would you say?
Well, I think probably the same thing. It's a good job if under any condition, and especially if you like to help people. And the thing is, the young kids coming on the job, if you'll take care of the job will take care of you. Well, I guess that's what you mean. I don't know.
Well, yeah, just whatever come to your mind. I'm sure you've seen a lot of guys who didn't take care of it. And piss it away.
Well, yeah. Back when I first went on, there was an awful lot of drunks on the job, and now you don't see. And then in the interim, in between, say in the late '60s and the '70s and even into the '80s, there was guys that was on dope even. And now, my understanding is, and I've seen a little bit of it, most of your guys, they got their laptop or their telephone and they're over in a corner doing their own thing and the hell with everybody else. There's not a whole lot of camaraderie anymore in some cases. Not all the time, but of course when you're eating, that's one thing, and exercising, that's another. But people go off into their own little corner and do their own thing a lot now. I'm not saying it's rampant, but I did see it even before I quit.
And that's not healthy.
Huh?
For the firehouse. I don't think.
Well, of course, there was an old saying back in the old days: if a guy didn't drink with you, don't trust him. But then, that's not to say that it was right either. But
Well, I'm going to turn the corner on the questions, and I want to ask you about home life. How's being a professional firefighter affect your home life? Good or bad?
well, in my particular situation, it didn't affect. My wife raised the kids. I worked 2 jobs, don't forget. After the kids were born in '60 and '63, hell, I was right in the middle of working on my day off. Hell, I was making more money on my day off than I was in the fire department. But we always managed to go to Florida on vacation every year. And we always managed to go to Kings Island every year, or 2 or 3 times a year. We went to the ball games in Cincinnati, 2 or 3 times a year. We done fine. You know.
Did you miss much from being at the firehouse?
Did I what?
Did you miss many things being at the firehouse? Ball games, birthday, Christmas, stuff.
Yeah. We always had our Christmas a day early or a day late, but that was the way it was. There were some guys that always planned ahead, and there were some guys that probably never worked a Christmas day, and they probably still do, some of them. Whether they called in sick, or whether they had somebody working for them, or whether they took a vacation day. That was the way it was. But as far as I was concerned, if it was Christmas or Easter or Mother's Day or Father's Day, whatever day it was, if we were working, we were working. And that was the way it was. And we done all right. My wife done all right. I just wish that she was healthier, that we could be doing things now, but that's neither here nor there. The kids are both doing okay, so. Yeah.
Did you find yourself ever taking stress home from the job?
No, didn't have time. Because I'd come home in the morning and maybe eat a little breakfast and change clothes and go right to painting somebody's house.
So that's what you did. You was a painter.
Yeah. And remodeler. I remodeled a little bit too. Yeah, no, there was no, any stress that I had, I lived right there at the fire station. And I didn't have that much stress anyway. The boss don't have too much stress.
Were you ever involved in a successful rescue from a fire?
Oh yeah. A little story there. Squad 7, the B shift, they all got a award, a Red Cross award or something. There was 3 of them, or 3 or 4 of them. I think it was on the, I know Hedges and Cooper and Jack Hedges and Bob Cooper and I don't know who the officer was. Might have been Froggy Commons. I don't mean Froggy, Charlie Commons. They had a guy that had been, I think, stabbed in the neck or something over around the Ohio show there on Ohio Street. And it only took one guy to hold his jugular vein shut till they could get him to the hospital or get him in the ambulance and to save his life, I guess. Anyway, they got a commendation for saving this guy's life, 4 of them. And at the same time, we had a fire at the, I forget the name of the hotel, on Fort Wayne Avenue. We took, I think, 7 people out of the 2nd and 3rd floor. One guy died in the basement. And we were in the 2nd and 3rd floor handing people out to the guys on the ladders. And we didn't, they didn't even know we existed. But 4 guys, for this one guy holding a blood vessel, they got an award for it. That was back in, that had to be back in the 50s.
Yeah, that still goes on, trust me.
And I let Jack Hedges know about it all the time when I see him. He lives down there he's lived in Florida for 30 years, but I remind him of it.
What's some of the craziest thing you've witnessed on the job? And I know that's broad, but
Craziest thing.
yeah.
In what vein?
Well, I don't know. You tell me. That's why I left it broad.
That'd be hard to answer. I don't know. One of the craziest but it was essential. One of the craziest things to have to do, but it was essential back in the 50s and the 60s, is to use the aerial trucks to go and knock down big icicles 7, 8 stories up on buildings. Yeah, so they wouldn't fall on the people. Yeah, well, I mean, that was essential. You had to do it. But there was icicles maybe 10, 12, 14, 20 feet long, hanging off drain pipes and stuff on these tall buildings, especially on Illinois Street in Pennsylvania. You know, years ago, I spent a lot of time just knocking icicles down. If that,
I never heard that.
and what was the question?
It's one of the crazy, some of the crazy things.
I mean, it was essential, but it was sort of crazy, you know.
Huh. I never heard that one before.
What, chopping icicles?
Yeah. Had you heard, Joe? Have you heard that?
I thought somebody mentioned it somewhere along the way.
Huh.
We don't. I wonder. You know, there's still the thing. I don't. There's still icicles down there. I don't wonder why they don't have us doing that anymore. You know. It's not like it's still an issue.
Maybe listen real close and they might. They may not say take care of an icicle. They assist a person or something like that.
That's true.
Why is IFD noted as an aggressive interior attack? Fire department.
Well, I don't know what that it is. Why is it? I don't know that it is right now, is it? It used to be.
Why was it?
Oh, hell, I don't know. I guess it's the guys. If you were sent to put a fire out, you're going to do your best to do it to put the fire out. So you got aggressive and went in and grabbed it and put it out. I guess I don't know.
Do you see any differences from like early when you came on, especially like in the ladder company, what they used to do versus what they do now, or what they did at the end of your career? Was there big differences in what they?
Ladder companies, what they did then and what they do now. Most ladder companies, they want to call it freelancing, but when you pulled up to say a residence fire, just past the fire and across the street, that was so the engines could be in front of the fire, and you pulled up past the fire. When you pulled your ladders out of the back end, the fire was right there. In other words, pull up to where if you get the ladders out and come straight up the driveway. They call it freelancing now, but you used to put your ladder. The officer used to call for the ladders and whether it be a extension ladder or to a ladder to the second floor roof, and then the roof ladders to open the roof up. You more or less, guys had assigned jobs and they knew exactly what to do. Now, with incident command, you hardly do anything until you're told to do it. And they call what we did freelancing. No. We had better tactical reaches than they do now because we could read, and we were there before the battalion chief or anything. So a lot of times we had the thing laddered before he was ever there anyway. If that's that.
Exactly what I mean. I've always heard they didn't open as many roofs back then because they had to chop them open and they just.
Oh bullshit! We open more roofs then than they do now, and Hell's Fire don't. And you look now, even on some of the pictures, you see a lot of roofs open just above the gutter line instead of up at the corner of the roof. They don't want to give me no crap about that. Hell's Fire. Now they don't open it up unless they use a chainsaw. Hell's Fire. Of course, it might be a little harder now because it's all plywood roofs and stuff, where back in the old days it was shingles, And if you had a fire underneath them shingles, hell, they were weak anyway. You could lose an axe chopping down through a roof. But now it's a little. Chainsaws are good because there's different construction now.
You talking about the old wood shingles underneath the
Yeah,
asphalt shingles?
yeah.
You don't see many of those anymore. I'll tell you something I want to ask you. Describe about the old apparatus, like riding on the old open cabs and stuff.
It was cold in the wintertime. I drove from time to time. The first modern apparatus I drove was Seven's 1955 Maxim 1500 gallon. I also drove the 37 Diamond T squads, the 1925 or 26 Stutz ladders, Stutz high-wheeled engines, shop-built engines. They were all different. Matter of fact, the Stutzes had mechanical brakes, so you didn't try to go around the corner on two wheels on them. And American LaFrance cab, open cab, 1937 aerial truck. They were fun to drive, and the tiller. I tiller once in a while on it. But the old apparatus, you turned around and never faced the wind a lot of times when you was going, and you had to hold your helmet on. And it was cold if you was on the back end. And the first enclosed cab that I ever was associated with was at Fives when they got that new Seagraves rear mount aerial. The guys rode in. It was. It had sides and a cover, but it didn't have no door on the back of it.
Did you like that when they came with the car, or did you say, nah?
Not necessarily, no. One thing about the old open air stuff, you had a hell of a lot more vision. You could see pulling into a fire. You could see a lot better, and it would help you in decision making a little bit better too. But now you have to get out and look around, and it's just different.
I can remember getting out as substance stuff. You don't, because you can't see and you're set backwards. You get out, you don't even know where you're at, really. You don't know what street you're on. You don't know, you know what I mean? You have no sense of where you're at in the city, because when you're backwards and you're in a cab.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You don't know whether they turn left, right, and then when you get out, you're just looking for the fire. I couldn't have told you what street I was on.
And you wouldn't know how to get there either, would you? Yeah.
So, in that regard, it hinders you too.
Well, there was another thing too. If a lot of times, if you was on the back end on an old apparatus, you had the bell. You rang the bell going through an intersection. A lot of times, if a chauffeur and it happened. I'm not saying all the time, but it did happen. Officer and a chauffeur at that time, they were called, not engineers, would blow a street go where they should have turned. That bell would let them know that they went wrong. And the guys on the back end could point and tell you, well, you went through it. It's back there or back that way. But now if you're turning around and looking in the wrong direction, you wouldn't have a clue anyway. So, but it did happen, believe me, that you could ring that bell and get their attention up in front that something was either the wrong direction or maybe they were looking this way and the fire's over here. You don't know.
I didn't know they had a bell.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
All apparatus had a bell at one
I
time.
didn't know that. Well, safety too. If something guy fell off, hey, you lost
Yeah,
one.
well, you could hear that bell. Siren's one thing, but hitting that bell a half a dozen times going through an intersection get people's attention too. And of course, traffic's different now. Air conditioning, everybody's got their window rolled up. Back in them days, there wasn't no air conditioning.
Can I ask a question along that same line?
Sure.
Kind of along that same line, people on the back kind of pointing and helping each other out. Can you talk about like the competition to beat another company into their area? And we've heard of stories of guys, the engine would slow down and you'd have to jump off with the hose to catch the plug. I mean, you were fast, and you were just
Oh
trying to
yeah,
Can you
yeah.
talk about that for a little
Yeah,
bit?
you had your the button one in one hand and two folds of hose. A lot of times they just slow down and you just come off. Yeah, I mean they weren't going fast, but if you had two or three folds with you and drop it in the street and then wrap the butt, as they were going down the street, it stretched it out. But yeah, you come off quick. I'm not saying they didn't stop, but in some cases they didn't stop, but they weren't going fast either. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah.
What if you did beat somebody into their area? Was there hell to pay from that captain?
Oh no, no, no. If you beat them, you beat them. And if they didn't like it, they could lump it. But we used to take pride in, say, beating the fives, which you couldn't do very often. But once in a while you could beat the fives into, say, 16th and College or 16th and Alabama. And you could maybe once in a while, beat the eights into Alabama and St. Clair. Or you're coming this way at the old eights. Are you acquainted with the building? The old eights, 11th and Broadway. Yeah, yeah. Is a struggle to maybe beat the eights to, say, Fort Wayne and Pennsylvania Avenue. That's about an even draw. And there was plenty of competition. And beating the 13s was even better yet. One time I remember we had a fire on California Street north of Michigan, but between Michigan and North Street, and we beat the fives and the 13s up Indiana Avenue and took the hydrant there at the corner of California and North Street and laid back down towards Michigan Street and had water on the fire, or had the engine hooked up in front and where it should have been the 13s or the 5s. Just little things. Yeah, there was plenty of competition,
What's some little tricks of the trade? Guys do little tricks to get first water. That was always the thing. Your engineer always knew never charge another line before you charge our line. Stuff like that.
Well, that happened too. But most of the time, you took care of yourself first. And the other company, whoever was going to bring the hose to you, they hooked it up themselves. As the engineers are busy doing something, whatever. But you had your line off your engine first, which generally was not any, it wasn't competitive, it was just the way things happened.
Now, did it differ back then? Because, that was a thing when I was subbing. Some officers said, hey, we take our own line to mean
They lay their own in the street, you mean?
that, and even their hand line. They would take their own hand line off their engine and go hook it at the engine. We ain't pulling one of their lines. We're taking our line. That was a big thing when I was subbing, I remember.
Well, it depended on whoever was the instant commander.
But what was it? I mean, what's your standing on that? What you say you laying your own line in the street, or Would you take off?
Well, there was a protocol as far as the first engine in hooked up in front of the fire, the second engine in laid a line to that first engine and backed up and hooked up to the hydrant back there. And then he pumped into the engine in front. That way, if that hydrant went sour on the first engine, or that pump went sour, this other engine could boost the pressure and, to the first engine. But you should only had one engine in front of the fire.
What about your take on 5-inch? They never laid it when I come on, Harley.
Huh?
Now, they never laid it when I come on unless it was a big building. Now they want it laid on all kinds of stuff. Even houses, if they're really going, they want 5-inch.
Huh?
Even houses, they want 5-inch on if they're really going, you know?
What's the point?
That's what I say, but that's what they want. No,
Starting to go that way.
I mean, I've seen 4 hand lines off of a 3-inch. So, like you said, do you think they were starting to overuse 5-inch before you left?
No, they had 5-inch, I guess, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But were they starting to overuse it, or not that you've seen yet?
No, I think, hell, I don't know. Don't remember. Because I was always going to be the last one there anyway. On a working fire, I had to go, but hell, I might have to go to Post Road and Cumberland Road or something.
Did you retire as a shift commander?
Yeah.
Did you like that job?
Yeah. Yeah.
Better than the battalion chief job? Because I remember you being at what, 3s, 4s?
I sort of did, yeah.
Did you?
Because I didn't have to worry about anybody but me. If I wanted to take off and go somewhere, I went. I didn't have, not that I didn't like having an aide, but I didn't have an aide, and I just liked it.
Who was your aide at 3s? I can't remember.
Bernie Egan, and then when he retired, Mike Tibbetts for a little while. And before either one of them, I asked Bernie when I got promoted to chief, I wanted him to come with me. And he said, no, we wouldn't be able to get along. Well, he was at 11s and I turned that off.
Did you ever have any friends that were injured pretty serious on the job?
Yeah, Nix. Pat Nix, when he fell in the, yeah.
You're pretty tight with Pat, aren't you?
Well, we more or less growed up together at 7s.
He's on my list to interview.
And he was when they opened that shift commander's job, Smith was the chief, and all 3 of us were the oldest battalion chiefs on the job, and we were all at 3s. And Smith sent us all downtown together, Olson, Nix, and myself. And hell, we was together at 7s years and years ago. Yeah. We just, and at 3s, for all them years. He was on the B shift and I was on the C shift. Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
How about anybody else? Anybody else that come to your mind got hurt?
Well, no. I'm sure there was. I just can't remember them all.
I remember when you guys went up shift commander, that's when him and Noon kind of had their falling out. Danny. Or not Danny, but John. John Noon.
And who? Next?
Yeah.
That was, I think John got pissed off.
Yeah.
I ain't going to talk.
Yeah. That's fine. We'll talk about it afterwards. But you got anything else you want to ask him?
We covered a lot. I just can't.
some of the stresses on the job. You said you didn't bring any home. Well, what was your biggest stresses on the job?
I don't know.
Well, them chiefs now, you seem awful relaxed because those chiefs now, they're stressed out to the max. I mean, they're always stressing about something. There's just so much.
I don't think we were stressed. I think
Did you
if
feel like the city was behind you? Because I think that's how the Chiefs feel now, that the city, if they get there in the pinch, the city's going to dump them like a hot potato.
I don't think we had to worry about that.